Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Godfrey Dirt Chapter, our May meeting. This is our second episode where we're attempting to do three things in our meeting. One is to have a live meeting, one is to have a virtual meeting behind the scenes, and the third category is to record the meeting. So we're trying to do a trifecta here. And our first encounter, last meeting, we had some problems maintaining connection with the Wi-Fi here. We're having the same problems tonight. We think we're going to bypass that because we're dual recording the meeting, so we should be okay. But when it goes down, the folks out there do not have audio capability to connect to us. So they will see us, but they won't hear us, I don't think. We're going to make corrections to that. We think it's one of our computers, the antenna on it's too weak to connect to their Wi-Fi. Our other unit seems to do okay, and hopefully it'll be okay tonight. But anyhow, before we begin, I'd like to introduce a couple of guests to the chapter tonight. Gordon McKay, who's the state treasurer, and Jim Heritage and their wives. So anyhow, that kind of kicks our meeting off. From this, we're going to go into the PowerPoint. You can do it. Screen share. They're going to bring that up in a second. It takes a second to flip it over from the environment we're in. While we're waiting, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update. A few of us made the trip down to the Battle of Utah Springs commemorative they had back 6 months or so ago. And we do have a streamer from that we're going to place on our GDCSAR flag tonight. Also, one of our vice presidents, Nelson, is not going to be with us tonight, and our chaplain is not with us tonight. So this is our starting slide for this evening, and now I'd like to welcome everybody. This is where we start off each evening. I've made one small change to our PowerPoint, and that is that we're moving the chaplain's prayer up to the very front of the meeting, which I think is where it should be. We've always in the past held it after the pledges and everything, but really the chaplain's prayer is very important to this chapter, and I think it deserves the dignity of being the first thing. Would you move on to the next slide? You can just hit that forward button, forward and backward button. We'll do it. And I'm going to have Robert Eskew read the prayer for our chapter this evening. Robert.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, we ask your blessings on the Godfrey Dirt chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, as our purpose is to promote sound learning and true patriotism and to further all that is good in our community. So we pray that you will strengthen our hands in all that we undertake, that we may serve our nation to your honor and glory. Amen.
We can move on to the next slide. At this point, we're at the point where we've made a decision a while back that one of the things that's not being done too much in our country anymore is our national anthem. So we made a decision at our last meeting that we were going to play the national anthem for all attendees at our meetings. That's what this will be. And Gary, will you lead us in one of those? Just
all right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Salute the South Carolina flag.
I salute the flag of South Carolina and pledge to one my state, love, loyalty, and faith.
The SAR pledge.
We descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty, and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend it against every foe.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. At this point, we're going to do the presentation of the banner for SAR flag. And Robert Eskew was one of the participants at that event, and he's going to pin the streamer onto our flag. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Dave. Next slide, Robert. Now we'll move on to our next event, which is the presentation by our Secretary, Gary Lanphier.
Those are the minutes were sent out in the newsletter and are posted on the website, and the members voted online to approve last month's minutes.
Thank you very much. As it says, the minutes are available in our last newsletter, and they're also on the website. If you do want to go back and ever review them, we have a complete archive of our minutes now. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer, Fritz Gladfelder. Fritz?
End of the month of April financial report. In the bank, we currently have $1,195.74, which is an all-time high for us.
Very good. Okay, Robert. And for our registrar, Woody Gross.
So far this year, we've had 3 new members, and at the present time, we have 3 applications that are at various stages of the process.
By the way, we have one applicant that's a disabled veteran, and we're trying very hard to get him into our membership. I think that'd be a nice mark on the wall for us. At this point, I'll give the president's report and go through that. These are the decisions and recommendations that the executive committee made at the last meeting, which was on the 3rd of the month, excuse me. One is that, well, we've actually made this before that meeting, but we are going to participate in the Memorial Day Parade in Lawrence, or in Aiken, South Carolina, on the 29th of May. We have 3 militia uniformed and armed going to that meeting. And we're going to be with Ted and his group down there. And it's actually going to be in Augusta. So it's a combination of South Carolina Society and the Georgia Society coming together. For our chapter, it's the first time we've ever done an event like that, which is going to be quite interesting for us. Second thing that we talked about in the meeting was that Nelson and Buck Schuler are working on getting a final recommendation for a grave marking for our founder situation. And in addition to the founder, we're hoping that we can also get one of our compatriots in and sometime in the fall. So we're pushing very hard to get at least one founder marker in by the end of summer. Don and Woody, they worked very hard in the background on awards and presentations, and they said that we have more awards this evening. A second support of the Aiken chapter is that on June the 12th, there's also going to be an event in Augusta with the Georgia Society, and that involves they call it the second siege of Augusta. I'm not quite up to on the history of it and all of that, but we are going to participate and support the Henry Lawrence chapter and Ted and his group over there on June 12th. The whole chapter is invited to that event as opposed to the one on the 12th or on the 22nd. The one on the 22nd is strictly militia, and the one on the June the 12th is for the whole chapter, so anybody can go to that. It looks like it's going to be a very well organized event, the one on the 12th of June, so I'm looking forward to both of them. There's going to be an annual State Society Board of Governors meeting on the 22nd of May. And of course, all chapter members are invited to that. So if there's anybody that hasn't received an invitation that would like to go, let me know and I'll make sure that you'd have an invitation and you can register for it. We also participated in the technology committee meeting for the State Society through Keith Maddox. And we discussed some of the events in that committee meeting also in our meeting. So that was basically what transpired in the executive meeting on May 3rd. Robert, next slide. Our achievements for the chapter in April. We published our newsletter, and even though we only have 37 members in our chapter, we had 88 openings of the letter. So it's gaining an acceptance. We did have an all-time record about 3 or 4 months ago where we went over 100 for some reason. But we usually balance between somewhere between the 80s and 90s, and we keep incrementally growing a little bit each month. Woody and I talked about what to do in the summer with the newsletter, whether we should keep it going or not. And due to the longevity of the downtime we had without having meetings here, and only having 2 meetings before we went to our summer recess, we thought we would continue the newsletter during the summer. And for good reason. It's a good communication vehicle and keeps some continuity in the chapter during the months when we're on vacation, et cetera, et cetera. I want to make a special note of thanks to the folks that contribute to that newsletter, because believe me, it does help a lot. Fred Morrison, and Terry, and Woody, and Keith contribute a lot to that newsletter. And I was trying to it ended up being all day long. And it was partially, some things were successful. Some of the things were passed back to the committee for, I'm talking about the bylaws committee of the State Society for their update and presentation at the annual meeting on the 22nd. We have now completed our design of a methodology for updating our database. And we'll be sending out to each of the members a form that you'll go through, and it is intelligent, and that you'll be able to go through it and click and add things to your database, send that report, and you'll be able to send that report back to either Robert or myself, and then we'll get the database updated with the information you provide. So things, for example, like your awards, recognitions, and it also has a lot of information there. What we're trying to do is gain information about your likes and dislikes of things that you like to do, so that if the opportunity comes along, we can go to our database and we can look at it and say, well, gee, Fritz likes to do this. Maybe you'd be interested in looking at it. So that database is going to be very important down the road for us. So these are the achievements that we accomplished in the month of April. These are our objectives and process. The virtual meeting, that's this thing that we're trying to do tonight. It's a trifecta type thing we're trying to achieve. We've got the Board of Governors meeting, annual meeting coming up on the 22nd. And we also have the Memorial Day parade I mentioned. I'll go through this pretty quickly because I'm kind of overlapping some things I've already talked about. The siege, second siege, we're going to go to that on the 12th as a chapter event. Our operations recovery documentation is pushing ahead through Keith, and I'm part of the holdup on that, getting some recovery documentation to him on the technology side of it. And once we get all of that together, that'll be complete very soon. The database entry that I just talked about, and our grave marking we talked about is we're trying to achieve a founder and a compatriot marker. The founder marker sometime in the summer and maybe a compatriot marker sometime in the fall. And then we're going to do a cookout. There's one change in the cookout that we talked about, and that is that we're not going to do it on the 4th of July. Too many people have relatives that they gather together with, and it would probably, we'd have a small turnout. So we're going to slide it a little bit, maybe into just before September's meeting, so that we can kind of have a reunion meeting before we have our first meeting in September. So those are the objectives that are in process right now. Robert? These are the objectives that are in the queue. We haven't started them, but we are thinking about them and we want to get to them as quickly as we can. And that is a formal presentation of the colors in an environment that's appropriate for it. This room is too small, but there will be events where we'll do a formal presentation of the colors where you carry the colors in and you do it with discipline and dignity to those colors. And that's part of the militia thing that Fred and I and Fred's son are working on in the future. Now that we're back together again live, we'll be able to pursue some of these things that have not been, they've been sitting on back burners right now. We want to have a militia manual training arms, and Fred was kind enough to put a booklet together for us. So all we need to do with that is get somebody to train us, and Fred's got it with him, as a matter of fact. So we've got the training manual. We just need somebody in a reenacting capacity to join us and teach us how to hold a weapon and present a weapon with discipline and honor to the flags. Third category that we have in the back queue is officer training program. And Woody and I have talked about this for a long, long time. We have a PowerPoint for registrar training, and we think both him and I feel it's pretty good, but we don't have any training documentation for any of the other officers within the chapter. So we want to complete that objective again, so that when somebody walks into Fritz's job as treasurer, he knows exactly what he's facing, but not only what he's facing, but how to do it. And that's difficult sometimes. And I found that out when I joined State Society and put my application in, how much there is to learn about being a good registrar. And they're probably the key focal officer within every chapter. So anyhow, that's something we want for our chapter, is a training manual for each officer, new incoming officer in the program. The fourth one is a website retention system, and that's basically for historical records of our chapter. Most of the chapters keep little notebooks of nice pictures and stuff, and that's their archive. What we want to do is a digital archive, and as soon as we can, we're going to move to that. As soon as we get through this education curve of what we're doing today. Robert, the next slide. At this point, we usually take a break and have some presentations. I don't know whether they're going to work tonight or not, but I was able to identify 4 people out from YouTube that have, so I could squeeze them into 15 minutes. I couldn't get all 4 in, but I could get Marion and Sumter in, and Andrew Pickens and Nathaniel Green. I'm going to move those to the newsletter. Otherwise, we'd be here 45 minutes so we can get these 4. Want to try one of those, Robert, and see if it comes in. Nelson McLeod is our Vice President of Programs and Events, and Nelson's not with us tonight. Buck Schuler is on virtual in the background, and they are working on developing the first founder marker that we're going to do, or multiple founder markers. I do not know what their decision is yet, but once they make that recommendation, we're hoping we have that recommendation at our next executive meeting. That's Buck Schuler. He's our historian. Our Vice President of Chapter Development is Fred Morrison, and Fred has been virtual on us most of the time, and he's also a heavy contributor to the newsletter. Fred, was there anything you wanted to say to the group tonight, or?
No, except that, Bill, I'm so proud of what you and others are doing with this chapter for the state. It's very impressive, and for those of you who are visiting us this evening, welcome. And Bill's done a monumental job, not only for our chapter, but for the system of state. And we'll recognize nationally for all of his work and others like that.
Thank you, Fred. I have to apologize about tonight because the whole technology is the video portion of it. And, for some reason, we're not having a very good night on that end of it. But we will find out what's going on and correct that. Keith Maddox is our Vice President of Technology, and Keith and I, we're almost joined at the hip anymore. Keith, was there anything you wanted to say to the group tonight? Well, I'll say one thing about Keith. When we got ready for our last meeting, him and I worked 4 full days together. And I mean, they were long days when we were testing, and So I want to thank him for all the time that he spends on technology, and he has helped us to come a long way on this. It doesn't show tonight, but that's too bad. Honors and awards is Don Simmons, and Don is a former president of the chapter, and him and Woody worked together on the awards.
You would hold that one, right? I have several awards to present tonight. Fritz, could you come to the front of the room, please? Carl Frederick Fritz Glodfelder, we honor you tonight with a certificate of recognition for 10 years of service with the Godfrey Dreer chapter. Your leadership in the chapter as a chairman of the scouting committee and now as treasurer has been invaluable. Thank you, Fritz.
Thank you, Bill.
Can we get a picture right here? Got it? Thank you, Fritz. Okay, a little education. The Bronze Roger Sherman Medal may be awarded to a compatriot in recognition of and in appreciation of outstanding services rendered to a chapter. The recipient must have served as an active officer for a minimum of 2 years, as an active committee chairman for 3 years, or as an active member of a committee for 4 years. This medal is named for Roger Sherman, 1721-1793, who was a founding father and the only person to sign all 4 congressional papers of the United States: Continental Association, Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution. A compatriot may receive this medal multiple times. A bronze oak leaf cluster may be awarded for an additional 2 years of active service as an officer, chairman, or committee man. Colonel Frederick K. Morrison, would you come forward? Fred, the Godfrey Dreer chapter thanks you for your service and leadership as Vice President of Chapter Development, and for your leadership in the organization of the Godfrey Dreer Chapter Uniform Militia. We are proud to present you the Roger Sherman Medal. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Don, very much. Thank you, Bill.
Let's get the picture.
Okay. Can we get in the middle here?
Yeah.
Everyone say cheese.
Got it? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Compatriots, without your leadership, the Godfrey Dreer chapter would not be advancing and flourishing as we are now. Thank you again for your many years of faithful service to our chapter. Thank you, Bill. That's the baton.
We're ready to move forward. Did you go by your slide?
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Terry Gladfelter is our ladies auxiliary, and that's still in the process of formation. And as we get more good ladies like Deborah and Terry on board, that group will grow. Terry, is there anything you'd like to comment on?
Yes, the Granby chapter is supporting the program at Casey on the 15th. And Dane Hunt will be the speaker. It'll be on the front lawn at 1 o'clock. Bring your chairs, and he's going to speak from the porch. It is actually sponsored by Sons of the Revolution, not the SAR. It's the other organization. But the hierarchy of the DAR asked us, the Granby chapter, to support them. So that's what we're doing. The more people there, the better.
That's right.
At 1 o'clock, they are supposed to be here.
Well, Woody and I are going to be there, and so we'll represent the chapter, and I think we're
I'll
going to.
be there too.
Oh, that's right. Fritz will be there. Oh, you will? Great. Well, good. Then we're going to have a good group there. Well,
Terry, tell him where it's going to be.
Casey.
He wouldn't know where it is.
Casey Museum?
Yeah,
When
the
again?
front lawn is Jackson Music.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
that sounds good. We're going to take the read, Fred. Go ahead.
I just want to make a quick comment that if any of you have not been to the Casey Museum, it is a jewel in Casey, South Carolina, and in Columbia, South Carolina, nobody knows about. It is fantastic. So if you get a chance to go to this program or sometime at your leisure, it is well done. It goes back to the history of the Revolution, and so many artifacts around there. Arrowheads.
It's kind of our focal picture on that.
Right.
And she's been there for a good 6 months now.
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled across her on the internet. I didn't even,
One other thing, Bill, you might want to check on that invitation for Saturday. It might start at 11:30. I got an invitation that was 11:30. Just to be sure.
good idea.
I've tried twice when I get a definition. Dean tells me it's at 1 o'clock.
He's a speaker.
Uh-huh.
Woody, if we get there at
Should have
11:30,
something to do with it.
what'd you say, Don?
I said, Dean's the speaker, and he says it's 1. That should have something to do with it.
Well, if we get there early, Woody, we can take a tour of the,
A wreath land and what have you, and some of that might take place.
that's
before.
probably what it is.
The speaker might be at 1 o'clock.
And we're going to be having we'll have our wreath there. So Woody and I will be there probably around 11:15 or so. Jerry, anything else? Thank you very much. Next slide. Our chairperson for ROTC Awards and also our excellent Vice President of the Midlands Region, Buddy Witherspoon. Buddy,
Yes, sir.
you want this?
As far as awards are concerned, I think you all know that I reported last month that White Knoll High School, we didn't do a presentation, but they were going to do a presentation to the cadets who were receiving the awards at their drill and whatever. So we took it, gave it to them and let them take it from there. Meanwhile, I've also had a call from Batesboro and Leesville. They will be doing a physical presentation. We'll do that, and that's the last Friday of this month. So yeah, we already have a certificate and so forth at the time. They're going to do the inscription the way they put the certificate. So that's going to happen in the latter part of this month. And that's the other 2 high schools that I've heard from so far this year as far as opening back up. Better than last year, which was 0. Okay. We're talking about the Midland region.
Sure.
As you all know, we had the special BOG meeting on the 1st here in Columbia. We did have a quorum, and we maintained a quorum during the meeting, which kind of surprised most people, I think, because they thought someone would be leaving after a period of time, especially since it started at 11. I think we finished at what, 4, something like that.
Right.
And I have to be careful what I'm saying because the state treasurer is sitting here. He might have to straighten me out one or the other. But it was a good meeting. The reason it was called was a special BOG meeting. The reason was because the BOG is supposed to handle bylaws prior to it going to the annual meeting. So that was the reason for that. And I must say Robert Eskew was there from your chapter as well as Bill. And your president did a good job standing up and addressing some of the particular bylaw changes. And why he thought some of them were really not relevant or pertinent and what have you. And some of them received and some of them were stricken, but others, I guess, persisted. Because the problem is, on some of these bylaws, you don't know what the fervor was at the moment when those things were presented and passed and what have you. So you don't know what all the impetus was behind them and such. Like I said, we never presented many years ago. But some of the things are really not so relevant or pertinent when it comes to chapter development and what have you. And it doesn't define in the bylaws what some of the things really stand for necessarily either. So, I think we've got some things we need to clarify and one thing or another. Now that the special BOG is done there. I assume you say homework, getting ready for the annual meeting. And the bylaws committee got some of the stuff sent back to you, and I assume all that will now come forth at the annual meeting, where we'll have a final hearing and final passage. As well as, I assume there'll be election of officers there, presentation of awards and what have you. And if you didn't get your registration for it, it should be online. Registration is like $20. Wives do not have to pay the registration. But the meals, they had 3 different menus there that you could select from at the price. Naturally, if the wives would like to come to the meal, they can, you have to pay for that. Also, but the wives do not have to register. Other than that, it's going to be at the Double Bush River. Registration will begin on Friday afternoon, late. I forget what it's 4, 8, 5 to 9, something. I can't remember. Somewhere along there, yeah. So they'll start on Friday afternoon for people who may be coming in town from further in the state and want to spend the night, because we'll start with registration again on Saturday morning at 8, and then we're going to gamble it to start at 9. And then we'll go most of the day, I think, with lunch and awards and what have you into the afternoon, and then they'll have what do they call it? Happy hour, maybe at the end of the meeting, is there at the hotel or whatever. Of course,
We're
that's-
hoping there's some happy people.
I heard that. And if they aren't, maybe they'll go home.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll handle it such that. But I think that was the gist of everything that's coming up.
I will add one thing to it, that our incoming president is a retired Navy captain. And he likes things by the book. And he took one look at the bylaws and said, they're too long. So what we're going to try to develop in the next year or so is a operation manual, or a manual of what each person's duties are, and take them out of the bylaws and just say there will be a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and they will be responsible for this, that, and the other. But the bylaws now try to stuff into it what those people are supposed to be doing and what areas they're covering. And he says that has no place in the bylaws. So we're going to try to come up with an operations manual, or rules to go by, or whatever he wants to call them. But that's a project. and telling the bylaws committee that they're going to be out of a job is even going to be a bigger job. So the other reason is that to change something in the bylaw, we have to do just what Buddy said. We have to have a special meeting, approve them, and then the bylaws committee will present them at the annual meeting. They had to go out 15 days before the meeting. I think they went out on midnight on 15th day before the meeting. But if we do it through an operations manual, then those things can be changed at a board of governors meeting and not have to redo the constitution and the bylaws every time. So,
Sounds like it's working better than our current government.
pardon me?
I said it sounds like it's working better than our current government.
Well, I hope so.
I must tell you that a lot of different issues in the bylaws, there's a lot of hotty discussion concerning all the things there and so forth, and probably didn't have to last maybe quite as long, but again, like I said, want to give everybody a chance. Of course, Jim is trying to be fair as the president to give everybody a chance, so that they can't say that he calling it, that he brings forth my thought and that kind of thing. So I think he's done a pretty good job of allowing everybody to speak for, but it did tend to make it extenuated somewhat. But anyhow, I think that's the gist. If anybody got any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. What have you?
Thank you very much, buddy. Next slide. Our Chairperson for Education and Scouting is Woody Carruthers. Woody?
There's nothing going on.
Well, we have that
Yes.
Eagle Scout.
And the education there. Pandemic, we haven't done anything with the school. But with scouting, we are going to have a recognition of a Eagle Scout correspondent this summer. And we're also going to be working on scouting scholarship for an Eagle Scout during the summer, and during the fall. So, yes, there's scouting there. We are working.
Good. Woody. One other thing to add to what Woody is saying, the Eagle Scout Award that's coming up for us, it's not a young man, it's a young lady. And I think that's probably a first in South Carolina society. The Eagle Scout for a young lady. But anyhow, I'm really looking forward to that very much. That was the thing I was thinking about, Woody. Our commander of the militia is Don Jones, and Don's been on a sabbatical with a virus scenario, and I need to get in contact with him and see if he would like to go with us to Aiken on the 22nd. He really enjoys the militia aspect of this thing, and I'm hoping that his health is much better and everything, that we can get our I guess 4 Musketeers back together again, get our uniforms on and get on over to Aiken and help Ted over there. Anyhow, Don is our commander of militia. Our recessional is going to be led by Robert Eskew. Robert?
Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the independent Supreme Court, and the nation of free men.
Thank you, Robert. And I'm going to hold, have a seat for a second, please. I'm hoping that this particular video will come in because it's kind of special. We've been looking for a video for the end of our meetings, and our April, we had one that was the Mormon Tabernacle Youth Choir, and that was a song named Glorious, and it was the wording of the song that was really important for the membership to hear. This one is the Lord's Prayer. Anyhow, it doesn't look like this is going to come in either, so it's kind of a sad moment for this meeting. This is probably the worst. There it is. Anyhow, I thought that would be nice. That was a nice way to end our meetings. And I want to thank Fred Morrison. He sent that over to us. There you go. This is the folks in the background in the virtual world that are visiting us. We had Pat. Of course, that's not me. I don't know. That's Robert. Yes. And Buck Schuler, our historian, and Sandra Corley, who's a community lady that comes to our meetings. And that's our podium shot on the other. What this tells you is that we're in our kind of infancy on the virtual live scenario. And it's kind of an interesting environment we're in right now, in that you want to see the virtual grow, but you also don't want to see it grow because of the decline in the live meeting, folks. But our real objective here is to get our folks that are members, like Wayne Roberts up in Greenville, and the young man that's in college up in Spartanburg area. His name skips my mind right now, but that's the folks we want to bring back into the chapter so that they become active again. And the only reason they're not active is because of geographic separation that we've got right now. This will be our solution once we get this thing perfected. It's the back end. It's nothing up here in the front. It has all to do with connections to satellites and all of that, and connections to the restaurant. And it looks like we're going to have to see about something we can do to bypass the restaurant and see if we can go directly to a satellite. Anyhow, that's what we're trying to achieve. And tonight was a little worse than the first one, but we're hoping for better things down the road. We're not going to give up, that's for sure. Anyhow, thank you all. Go ahead, buddy.
Before we disband, Mr. President, we had talked about almost a year ago, because we didn't meet much last year.
Right.
Except for the very first.
Just virtual.
We talked about the great marking for Herman Youngner, which is Miriam Love's father. Do
That's,
we have any closer?
well, the two guys that are working on that, Buck
Nelson.
and Nelson, they're the ones that are going to make the decision on which one we're going to do in the summer. And Miriam's is one that I would like to see. If they choose a founder marker first, then Miriam's will be second. But we have to coordinate that with Miriam to make sure that it's okay with her and her family and all of that. So there's a lot of logistics about that have to be solved.
Miriam's going to be one of our first priorities.
Oh, there you go. That's Buck Schuler and virtual.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
it's all right. They're on our radar
Miriam is going to be our first one.
with Nelson's concurrence. That's kind of our plan. Yes.
That's great. That's good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you very, very much. Somebody else had their hand raised. Is it Don? Don? No? Okay. Well, with that, I think our time is just about an hour, not quite. If we had had the videos tonight, it would have been just about an hour and 5 minutes.
Confirm that the reclaim AC is at 11 o'clock.
I believe,
Saturday at 11. That's what it says on the cloud, Nelson McLeod posted on Facebook.
what time is the reclaim?
11.
That's what time Woody and I are going to be there then. Are you all going to come at 11 then? Oh, that'll be good. Get a group picture then. That'd be great. Buck, did you hear that? Sandra, can you hear us? No.
Yeah,
Yes,
heard.
I can hear, but I lost my audio during the discussion of Terry Gladfelder. What's the time on that at Casey?
Well, I was told 1 o'clock. Now, Mr. McMurtry, is it Murray or Murtry? He is the one putting out the different times. So I
And what's the date? What's the date on that?
Anything.
What's the date on that?
15th
Okay,
at 11 o'clock will be, I think, the wreath laying.
right.
Pat, did you have anything you wanted to add? No? Okay. Thank-
Just take your chair in case we have to wait.
Thank you all for coming tonight, spending time with us. We appreciate it very much.